Wow, what's up? What's up? What's happening, man? It's BG, aka B Jizzle, your number one original hot boy, man, and you're watching hot new hip hop, baby. Everything that I had to go through, to be able to rap again, to pursue my career again, man, because I had ran into, a situation where the feds had put a gag order on me and didn't want me doing nothing pertaining to hip hop or nothing pertaining to entertainment that I could make money off of. Man. I had to get permission from the court before I entered back into self-employment, and they felt like me being a rapper was me being self-employed. So while I was in the halfway house, I had got permission, from the director of the halfway house, my case manager, and all that, to go to the studio, record, shoot videos, you know what I'm saying, and do an album with Gucci Man. And I dropped the album with Gucci Man, but then once I got out of the halfway house and started being governed, by the United States Probation Office, they had put a warrant out for my arrest and tried to say that, the album that I did with Gucci Man and, the feature that I did with Finesse Two Times and a couple of other people was a violation of my probation. So, I had to go to court, fight that. You know what I mean? It was a lot, man. It was like, 6 months that was, really stressful, really depressing. And it was just me basically, fighting for my freedom of speech. You know what I mean? Like they was trying to control my content, you know what I'm saying? And tell me what I could and couldn't rap about. I didn't feel it. My lawyers didn't feel it. Like they felt like it was going a little overboard, you know what I mean? And yeah, man, that's basically what the title came from. I had it out, maintain my mental health, man. I was seeing a psychiatrist, man. I was going to sit on that couch, man. You know what I mean? And, just talking to somebody outside of, my immediate people and just outside of my friends and, things of that nature, man. So, and then I still, was in the studio recording, why they had the gag order on me, you know what I mean? It didn't stop me from just going in there and working because, that's where I'm most comfortable at, you know what I mean, in the studio and just getting my thoughts out and, creating good music or whatever. And I always believed that it was going to work out in my favor. From a creative standpoint, a legal standpoint, like, I was more jizzle on the album I did with Gucci. It was more raw, it was more rough, it was more rugged. Just spitting them raw verses that my fans used to hear from me, like in the back of my head, knowing and thinking, that them people listening, they monitoring it and if it's anything, that I say out of line, they gonna try to lock me up for it. So telling me they wouldn't didn't want me rapping about snitches, they didn't want me rapping about guns, they didn't want me glorifying violence, basically trying to turn me into a gospel rapper. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I ain't the first one to rap about it. I ain't gonna be the last, you know what I mean? But how you gonna tell me, what I can and can't rap about? Like, that's not right. The process of me recording the Gucci project, I was just more free, you know what I'm saying? But when it came down to the Freedom of Speech album, you know what I mean? Like even though the judge, ruled in my favor and said, that it was a violation, of my constitutional rights, she still, gave the prosecutor she still ordered me to turn over my lyrics, to my probation officer before I made them available to the public. And my probation officer turns them over to the court so they could put them on record. And, if the prosecutor, they ain't got to approve them or nothing, but if the prosecutor feel like, I'm going too hard or, I'm name dropping or, if I'm talking about, current and active cases or, current and active violence and shit that's going on in the streets, then, he could file a motion and bring me back in front of the judge, and ask her to violate me and we'll just, have to fight it out again or whatever. So on this album, I'm just more aware, man, and just more conscious of, what I say and how I say it, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a lot of things that I be wanting to get off my chest and, be wanting to create stories about and, just talk about from, what I, seen and been through, in the hood. Just storytelling, man. You know what I'm saying? Just being a product of my environment or whatever like that. But that the people listening, man. So, I gotta tiptoe around it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So, the album still, super hard. It's still, what I'm saying, BG, but it's BG, knowing that them people listening too, right? You know what I'm saying? So, I did everything, to make my fans happy and not try to poke the bear at the same time. And I wasn't no artist that I wasn't able to work with because of my situation. I mean, the judge told me if I want to, work with artists and, they're also convicted felons, you know what I mean? I just got to let my probation officer know beforehand, right? If it's work related, then she's cool with it. She ain't got no problem with it. But, if I'm just hanging with convicted felons, just out there, thugging or doing shit I ain't supposed to do with known convicted felons, that's in the hip hop community, then yeah, she ain't with all that, man. But if it's work related, it's cool. I mean, do I think censorship is more now than when I first started? Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely it is, man. But at the same time, N.W.A. and Two Live Crew, they fought this fight 30 years ago, man. You know what I'm saying? Fighting, for the freedom of speech. Rap's still on trial, man. You know what I mean? You see, how they use or see murder raps on him in court. They use Mac raps on him in court. You see what just happened with the YSL trial. You know what I'm saying? You see what's going on with Lil Durk right now. Like, with me, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's a bunch of other artists that the government or the state or prosecutors have, took their lyrics and raps and used them against them, in the court of law, man. And I just feel as though that, that's not fair. At the end of the day, man, it's only entertainment, man. You know what I mean? So, you ain't gotta like the music, like, but at the end of the day, it's a demographic that does. When I, talk to my prosecutor, like I told him, I'm like, man, at the end of the day, man, the people that give us these big budgets and pay us all these money, to record these albums and put this out, and the people that make the lion's share of the money, man, they look just like you. Yeah, nah, they was trying to play A&R. You know what I'm saying? With my project, man, and just wasn't sitting well with me, man. So I had to fight it, man, and it worked out in my favor, man. And I'm glad I did. You know what I'm saying? Because, it's the people, it's just going to be somebody, that's coming behind me that might find themselves, in that same situation. And, they could use my case as a reference, you know what I'm saying? Or use it to, come from under. Man, it was really, really good quality, street music. It was different. It was authentic. It was original. We wasn't trying to sound like nobody. Like, we set our own trends. We pretty much defined the era with this shit. You know what I'm saying? But it all come back to, that shit just being authentic, and it was hot. I mean, I love it. You know what I mean? I'm always embrace change, you know what I mean? And always, support the culture and who's up next. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a hip hop fan, you know what I mean? First and foremost, I love what the youngsters doing to advance the culture. I mean, it made me smile, man. I mean, if you ain't got no hot boys in your DNA or no cash money in your DNA, then you really not a hip hop fan, man. You really not a hip hop head. Reconnecting with my brothers, like it was a beautiful feeling, man. It's always, love and respect, amongst us, man. Like at the end of the day, we all, went through what we went through. We might have had our ups and downs, but at the end of the day, we got rich together. This rap game, really changed our lives, you know what I'm saying? Saved our lives. And, we was able to create so many opportunities for so many different people, like, and like I said, for me being gone as long as I was gone, and to come home and still be able to sell out arenas with the dudes I came in here with, it's a blessing, man.